mean, I don't want to talk now, but your husband went for my husband, trying to ruin his reputation.
I think our husbands need to have a separate conversation.
Well, Louis was a gentleman, reached out to him. He wanted to clear the air.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 14, Episode 1. And before we get into it, let me just say, this was a cute premiere episode. Now, if y'all have been watching me for quite some time, you know that when it comes to this franchise in particular, we are usually divided, all right? Because half of y'all are Team Teresa and Jen Aiden, the other half are Team Melissa and Margaret, and then you have some of y'all in the middle, you just don't really care that much, and you just watch the show. So here's where I'm at. Since we are coming off of a very tumultuous season of Potomac, I don't have it in me to be getting down in those comments and battling, all right? Because for some reason, Jersey, the comments go crazy, all right? So I'm going to be watching this season with a fresh set of eyes, but I will say that I have always leaned more on Melissa and Margaret's sides, okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. And Teresa, that display at Jen Fessler's birthday party when you were going at it with Rachel Fuda and her husband, I said a hot mess. But yeah, guys, I just want to have fun, so I will not be getting emotionally invested into Jersey, but I do think that it's sad that a family is broken. I think that it's really shameful that things are just so divided. And I do feel like some cast changes will need to be made because it's not going to be fun to keep watching them just not talk to each other. I don't like that. I don't like that for any franchise. I hated watching the divide on Potomac. I don't want to see it on Jersey. But y'all, this was a cute premiere episode. A lot happened. And without further ado, let's just jump right on into it because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. Now, one thing about Jersey's going to always give us a very dramatic opening scene. So we see an 80-second clip of them all sitting down having a very heated conversation. Rachel telling Teresa to shut her hot dog lipped mouth had me screaming. I said, okay, Rachel. I said, let me find out Rachel is activated and she's getting ready for season 15 because Miss Mama's, that was definitely a read. But a producer goes on to ask Dolores, how does she think that sit down went? And Dolores says horrible. And now we see 3 months earlier. So we open it up with Rachel and John Fuda at home, and they're having a nice family dinner. They have her parents over, her grandmother Nona, her brother, and her sister-in-law. Now, let me just say, Rachel last season, I was indifferent. I thought she could go. I could take her or leave her. But I really think that this season, she's about to really bring it, especially with that clip that we see of her getting into it with Teresa. And one quick side note, I love their house. I think their home is gorgeous. And they definitely have one of the prettiest houses on the Jersey franchise, in my opinion. But anyhow, they all sit down and start eating. And when I tell y'all my mouth was watering, they had the hot dogs and hamburgers, and then they also had that Italian food. They have focaccia bread, they had some pasta, some rice balls. And if you know me, Italian food is the way to my heart. That is my number one. She's that girl. I could eat Italian food literally every single day of the week. Penne alla vodka, carbonara, chicken scarpariello, chicken marsala, chicken francese. Don't play with her. She is not one of them. Italian food and me go together like this. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I continue to watch Jersey, because I love the food. And they always deliver with the spreads. Every time they have a party, they have an event. They are one franchise that will never skimp on the food, and I am here for it because y'all know I get on people when they have these spreads and there's nothing there. I'm like, that's unacceptable. How do you have a party and there's no food? How dreadful. So now Rachel shares that she's throwing a surprise party for Jen Fessler. And since she's throwing it with the help of Jen Fessler's husband, Jen Fessler's husband wants everybody to be invited. So she says she reached out to Teresa and Jen Aiden. Now Nona had me screaming. She said, nose job, Jennifer? And Rachel's like, yes. Now I said, okay, I wouldn't say too much about somebody else's rhinoplasty when yours is just as severe too. So Rachel goes on to say that Jen Aiden didn't respond to her, but Teresa actually did. And Rachel makes it clear that she only reached out to Teresa because of the party. That's it, that's all. And she's still pissed about last year. She says, your husband hired a PI to investigate us. There's no friendship. And I understand that. Because if I find out that you were trying to dig up dirt on me, I could never look at you the same. So now Rachel wants to know, what is John going to do when he sees Louis at the party? John makes a joke saying that he's going to give Louis a head nod the same way he does to people at Home Depot. Now the parallel scenes with Melissa and Teresa packing their daughters up for college. We see Melissa getting Antonia ready. She's like, okay, girl, your dorm is only going to be but so big. So pack up your favorite 5 pairs of jeans. Let's call it a day. Antonia is trying to take her whole closet with her. I just said, girl. However you feel about Melissa and Joe, they do build a nice house because their new house is that girl. And now we jump over to Teresa, and she's getting Gabriella ready for college. And Gabriella is the middle daughter. Gabriella is the more reserved one out of all of Teresa's girls. But we find out that she's going to the University of Michigan. And Teresa's like, I've been crying all week. I don't know what it is. I didn't cry when your sister Gia went away. But maybe it's because Gia went to Rutgers, which is only 45 minutes away, and you're going to the Midwest. But Teresa's getting emotional. She says that Gabriella holds a special place in her heart because when she was in jail, Gabriella was the only one who emailed her every single day. Now, one thing about me, whether I like a housewife or I don't care for a housewife, I can always give credit where credit is due because while Teresa works my last good nerve, I think that she's a phenomenal mother, and seeing her with her daughters had me choked up. You can tell that there's a lot of love between them. I love how close she is with her daughters, and I love how close they are with each other. So they finish packing up Gabriella, and now they go downstairs to have a family dinner. I thought the family dinner was cute. You can tell that they're working really nicely together as a blended family. I love seeing how Louis' sons get along really well with Teresa's daughters. So anyhow, Teresa shares that their wedding album just came in. They're going through all the pictures. And Teresa says that she was really angry at God for a while because she was in jail. Then she got out and her mom passed away. Then her dad passed away. So she goes on to add that this all happened so that she could meet Louis. Now, again, I feel like Louis was plotting on Teresa the whole time. I don't feel like it was a coincidence that they met. I feel like Louis said, okay, she's going to be here. I'm going to be right here too. She's single. I'm her type. I don't know. I just feel like Louis had his eyes on her from jump. And Teresa, I'm really annoyed at you that you didn't listen to Andy and the viewers and get a prenup. But again, that's just my opinion. And for all the Teresa lovers, don't be upset with me. I'm just letting you know that I do not trust Louis. I don't. And it is what it is. And if you get mad at me, that's okay. But I have to be honest and give you guys my opinion. So they finished looking at the wedding album, and now Louis brings up Jen Fessler's surprise party. He says, obviously last year was chaotic. And regarding Jen Fessler's party, you know that your brother and your sister-in-law are going to be there. So Teresa's like, babe, just follow my lead. When it comes to this, I'm the boss. And I'm just like, child, I can't take another season with you guys just not speaking and it being tense the entire time. I can't. I think that it's draining for the viewers. It has to be draining for you. You really want to live like this, Teresa, where you just don't speak to your only family member? That's your brother. And I'm not here to debate about who's right and who's wrong. I feel like they both have a part to play in the demise of their relationship. And a part of that, in my opinion, I have always felt like there was some jealousy on Teresa's part about her brother finding a wife, and Teresa is no longer the woman in his life. And it doesn't matter if he had married Melissa or somebody else. I feel like Teresa does not like sharing that attention. She wants her brother to only focus on her. Again, my humble opinion, my 2 cents. But I just think that it's really sad that we're watching a family be divided like this and they just don't speak. And now we jump back to Melissa and Joe at home, and they're bringing up Jen Fessler's party. And Melissa's like, you know that your sister is going to be there. And Joe's like, who really cares? I don't care. I want you to walk in and be like, hello. And Melissa's like, you're right, because at the reunion, your sister literally said that after tonight, she would never see us again. Now, I wonder how Teresa feels about saying that, because when she made that comment at last year's reunion, it was clear that she was alluding to Melissa being fired. But the fact that Melissa and her brother are back on the show full time, collecting that Bravo check, I know Teresa has to feel like there's egg on her face, because she just knew for sure that Melissa would not be back. And here we are, another season, and Melissa is still here. And I've always wondered if Teresa would be willing to talk to them again if they quit the show, because let's not forget, Teresa still holds that grudge that they joined her show. So I always wonder if they decided to quit, which I doubt they will because they need that money, but if they were to quit or be fired, I sometimes wonder, would Teresa open up and think about talking to them again? So now we jump to Margaret over at Jen Fessler's house, and Jen Fessler had me screaming. Before Margaret got there, she was playing her guitar. I guess she enrolled in guitar lessons, and she was playing Amazing Grace and something else. And the way her husband and her daughter were not supportive at all, they were like, girl, you sound horrible, please stop. I was like, Jen, don't listen to them. Keep playing, because the only way to get better is to keep practicing. Nobody starts off as an expert at anything. You try and you keep going. So good for Jen when it comes to learning a new hobby. I'm here for it. But now Margaret comes over, and her and Jen go outside to the back. They have some pasta salad, and they start talking about what's going on in their lives. So Margaret says that she feels overwhelmed. She feels like she's always go, 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 doesn't have any time to just sit down and collect her thoughts. And Jen says, yeah, ever since I met you, you've always been like that, and that worries me because you have too much on your plate. So Margaret goes a bit deeper. She says that she's not feeling like herself. Then she brings up how her son Brett got engaged, and it sucks because Jan, her ex-husband, isn't going to be there for the wedding. So she goes on to say that when Jan died, things really took a toll on her emotionally. She was focusing on everybody else, checking on her kids to make sure that they were okay. And let me just stop right here. When it comes to the whole situation with Margaret and her kids, I'm always confused because Margaret said they weren't speaking to her, right? It was after she cheated on Jan with Joe. Are they okay now? Because I know that one of the sons and Margaret talk, but are the other kids talking to Margaret now? Or is it just the one son who talks to her and then the other kids have iced her out? Let me know down below. I feel like I ask you guys every single season, what's the deal with Margaret and her kids? And one more point. It seems that Margaret's storyline this season is going to be some marital issues, because we see in the trailer, I think Joe Gorga says something to the effect of, your marriage was better when Jan was still alive. And then I think one of the women goes on to ask Margaret if she's thinking about a divorce or something. So it seems like that's going to be her storyline, that her and Joe are having problems because Jan died. But either way, I'm going to be seated because I want to see how this plays out. But regardless, I do feel for Margaret. I can only imagine her pain. And even though Margaret and her ex-husband divorced because she cheated, you can tell that they had a strong bond because Margaret said that they would talk every single day. Listen, y'all, I have a soft spot for Margaret. I like her a lot. I met her twice. She's very lovely in person, and she looks a lot younger in person too. The cameras don't do her justice, y'all, I swear. So they change gears in the conversation, and Margaret's like, let's talk about your birthday. We're going to take you out for dinner on Tuesday. And Jen's like, okay, cool, that sounds good. Now, mind you, Margaret knows good and well about the surprise party, but she's just suggesting a dinner so that Jen Fessler doesn't get suspicious. So since they're on the topic of Jen Fessler's birthday, Jen brings up how the girls have been so nice to her. She says, Danielle texted me, Jen Aiden DM'd me, and Teresa called me wishing me a happy birthday. Now I said, Jen, why are you bringing up Teresa knowing good and damn well that Margaret does not like Teresa? Margaret said, that's cool and all, sis, but when it comes to me and Teresa, as far as I'm concerned, Teresa is dead to me. So Jen Fessler says, well, I completely get it because if somebody had called my kid up, they'd be dead to me too, but Teresa has been lovely to me. Now, I don't know if I'm petty. I've discussed this before, but I can't stand folks with that attitude of, well, I understand that, but they've never done that to me. I don't like that. I feel like if somebody has done your friend wrong, you need to be on your friend's side. And I'm somebody where I believe in picking sides. I'm not going to sit up there and befriend somebody who betrayed somebody that I care about. So already I was giving Jen Fessler the side eye like, okay, girl. And when Jen Fessler said, oh, well, I would love to sit down and talk to Teresa about you, and Margaret shut that down quickly. She said, no. When you're with Teresa, do not bring my name up. Do not mention me. Don't even say a word about me. As far as she's concerned, I don't exist. And when Jen Fessler said, look, Margaret, when you told me at the reunion that you don't ever want to see them again, I said the same thing too. I don't want to see them again either. And I said, but Jen, it looks like that's not true because in the trailer, it appears that you and Teresa bond, and when you tell Margaret, Margaret's like, really, Jen? That's who you want to associate with? And you say yes. So it seems like Margaret and Jen Fessler might be on the outs too, because it seems like Jen Fessler wants to be with the OG, and the OG of this franchise is Teresa. Now, friendship is already a lot in real life, and I feel like adding reality TV into the mix is a recipe for disaster because people become so invested in being around people who can elevate them, being around the OGs or the cool girls of the cast. So it can get real messy when you involve real friends on a reality TV show. So now we see Teresa, Louis, Dolores, and Pauly going out on a double date. Now, when Dolores told the story of how Pauly is allergic to Italian food, I said, come again? And Pauly is not a small man, so I can't really envision him being allergic to anything. I was just like, I don't know, maybe it was an off day, but I don't know how anybody is allergic to Italian food. When she said that her brother made him some meatballs and he was wound up in bed for 2 days, I said, Dolores, this might not be the man for you then. So now Teresa jokes about how they're both with men who have Italian names but aren't Italian. So now Louis makes a joke asking Pauly, when is he going to put a ring on Dolores' finger? So he's just like, well, when I finally get a divorce, I'm going to propose to Dolores the right way because she deserves the best. And I said, now, Pauly, you've been separated from your ex for what, 14 years? Why hasn't this divorce already happened? I personally think that Pauly does not want to get married again. That's what it's giving. Or maybe he doesn't want to marry Dolores, but either way, something in the milk ain't clean. There is a part of me that feels like Dolores is definitely not pressed to get remarried again, and she's enjoying her time, but I still feel in a way that she is wasting her time being in a relationship with a man who is still legally married and doesn't seem to have any plans on getting a divorce. But Dolores is such a catch, so I'm really surprised that Pauly is not breaking his neck to try to get this divorce to happen and propose to Dolores. So now they bring up Jen Fessler's surprise party, and Dolores goes on to ask Louis if he's going to be there. So Louis is like, yeah, I'm going to be there. And then Dolores points out how this will be the first time since New York, aka the reunion, where they'll all be together in one room. So Teresa jumps in saying that Louis is such a gentleman because he actually reached out to John Fuda, Rachel Fuda's husband, and asked if they could meet up and talk and clear the air. So we see a clip of John responding back, and he pretty much says, I don't want to meet up with you in private. We can talk about this man to man at Jen Fessler's party. And Louis a bit annoyed because he feels like this is a private conversation that should just be held between them two. So now Paulie gives his 2 cents, saying that let's call a spade a spade. This is a private conversation that should be had between just the 2 of you guys. Now, I'm not going to hold you. I do agree with Louis this one time only. Don't get used to it. But I do agree that this is a private conversation that they should have. And I don't feel like it's fair to bring drama to somebody else's event. This night is supposed to be all about Jen Fessler. And for them to have a heated conversation at her party, that's going to take away from her party and her celebration. So I do agree with Louis and Teresa that this should be a private conversation, not with everybody else there. But then again, they're on a TV show, and arguing at somebody else's birthday party makes for a very explosive moment. I wonder if production whispers in their ears, like if you have an argument at this person's party or event, we'll give you an extra 10 grand or 20 grand, because you can't tell me that you think it makes sense to go at it at somebody's birthday or at somebody else's house. There has to be a monetary incentive to show your ass at somebody else's event. So you have Dolores poking and prodding. She wants to know, where does Teresa stand with everybody else? And Teresa says, me and Jen Aiden are great. She's in Italy right now with Bill. Me and Danielle are good. When it comes to Margaret, I'll say hi to her. But when it comes to Melissa and Joe, I have nothing to say. So Dolores is like, really? But if you see them at the party, are you going to say hi to them at the very least? And Teresa says, nope, I'm not saying anything to either one of them. Now, Dolores, why would you even ask that? You've been friends with Teresa for about 3 or 4 decades now. You know how your friend is. So I don't even know why you would act surprised about Teresa saying she's not going to speak to her brother or Melissa. So now Teresa spills more tea about Melissa and Joe, and she's like, get this. They all met up at Marge's house before the reunion to take me and Louis down. So she goes on to say that Frank and Louis made up, and then Frank revealed that they had called him and Brittany up to go against Teresa and Louis at the reunion, and he said, no, we don't want any parts of that. Then Teresa goes on to add that Danielle told her that at the reunion, Jen Fessler said something to the effect of, you guys didn't execute the plan properly, and Paulie even says that he heard that too. So you know how Dolores is. Dolores is always neutral. She's always Switzerland. She's like Jersey's Karen Huger. So she says, well, I would definitely ask why that was said, but when it comes to the reunions, it's not uncommon for us to have a meeting of the minds and get together and just talk. Like, everybody does it. And I don't know why Teresa's acting like that's the worst thing in the world, because on every franchise, they will say the same thing, that they will all get together and they'll all click up and talk about, okay, girl, you bring this up, I'll bring that up. Like, they all do it. On every city, on every franchise, they all do it. So Teresa acting like they are trying to conspire against us and take us all down, that's not true. Also, Teresa, let's think for a minute. Your man is out here calling people up on burner accounts, threatening people, hiring PIs like Bo Dietl to investigate folks. Why would you think that people would take that lightly? If I found that out before the reunion, I would definitely be talking to the other castmates who I get along with and being like, girl, what do you know? You know, this happened to me. Did that happen to you? Like, yeah, I would do the same thing too. So miss me with all that, I'm such a victim, I can't believe that they're trying to take us down. Girl, stop. You guys all do it. And this whole victim narrative is getting old. When Teresa said, it's just so sad how people act when 2 people are happy. Teresa, nobody's trying to take you guys down. People were genuinely concerned about you getting with Louis. Because I don't know if you know this, Teresa, but if Louis happens to be a scam artist, you will be gravely affected. So it's the day of Jen Fessler's surprise birthday party, and we see Teresa and Jennifer Aydin in the car together, and they're on their way to the party. So we find out that both of their husbands won't be in attendance. Bill is in surgery, and Louis had to go to Florida last minute for some business meeting. Now, I still don't know what Louis does, so I was perplexed as to what this business in Florida could be, but whatever. And a quick side note, at last year's BravoCon, the Jersey panel was something else, because one of the fans got up to ask a question, and they said, in 10 words or less, Louis, can you please explain to me, what do you do for work? And he couldn't explain himself, and she said, and she walked away. The way the entire crowd was screaming. I said, yeah, I feel like Louis does not have a job. But anyhow, they're talking about John Fuda, and Jen Aydin says, oh, by the way, I heard some kinky stuff about John Fuda. And Teresa's like, yeah, I heard the same thing too, that his ex was saying that he was the biggest drug dealer in Bergen County at one point, and then on top of that, how he likes double-sided dildos. So they're laughing about that, and I said, but wait, Teresa, it's so hypocritical of you to be talking about what you saw on social media about somebody else's husband, but when Margaret and everybody else were talking about Louis and his allegations from social media, you were angry. So it's only okay for you to discuss gossip and hearsay from social media. But let somebody do it to you, then it's a problem. Got it. That has always been my biggest issue with Teresa. Teresa plays by a different set of rules. She can say and do whatever she wants, but the minute somebody checks her, then she gets angry, then she wants to fight and scream, and then she wants an apology. That's not how this works. Now, I will say, I love Teresa's dress, and I also love the hair. That slick back braided ponytail was everything. But Miss Jennifer Aydin, for you to have the money that you do, I do not understand why you always look so tacky. Every single season, Jennifer Aydin looks like she's stuck in a time warp. That dress, it wasn't giving. It felt like she was doing some 80s cosplay. The teased up hair and then the shoulder pads. I'm like, girl, what's going on? And she's a pretty woman, so it's upsetting that her style just isn't elevated. Now, everybody's arriving to the restaurant, and I have to say, Rachel did a great job setting the party up. The place looked beautiful. They have a candy station. The food looks good. The drinks are flowing. So as everybody's walking in, things get tense when Teresa and Jennifer Aydin walk in. And Joe Gorga was doing his best to try to look unbothered, but he was visibly bothered when Teresa walked by because his veins were popping out of his forehead at one point, and I felt so bad. I said, this is so shameful that it's come to this where they can't even be in the same room together without this man looking like he's about to have a heart attack. I said, Joe, you might as well just say hi because you know you want to. But I get it though. Just off of principle, you can't do that. But yeah, something has to change because I don't want to go another season seeing them be so divided like this. Now, at one point, we see Margaret, Jackie, and Melissa talking, and they're talking about Jackie's new book. So Melissa's like, yeah, I just got the pre-copy of your book. And Jackie's like, oh yeah, because I'm going to be on your podcast next week. So Margaret's like, well, I would like to get a copy of your book. And Jackie's like, oh yeah, girl, I got you. And it's clear that Margaret is annoyed. And we all know that Margaret and Jackie right now aren't friends. We're going to see them fall out this season. So that's going to be interesting. But it's clear that Jackie is definitely somebody who wants to align herself with who she feels can get her back on the show as a full-time cast member. So now Rachel gets on the mic and she's like, hey guys, let's all hide out right over here by the bar because Jen Fessler and her husband are walking in. So Jen Fessler and her husband come through and they all yell out surprise. Jen Fessler says that she's shocked. She had an idea that there was something else going on and it wasn't just dinner, but she had no idea that they would throw her a party. So now she's like, okay, guys, let's all get wasted. Let's all get shit-faced. Like, let's all have a good time. And I was thinking, now, girl, you know who you're hanging with. You know that it's a lot of beef in the room right now. So that might not be the best idea about them all getting drunk. Now, before I forget, when Teresa and Jen Aiden had walked in, when they walked over to Danielle and Rachel, Margaret was standing right there. And Margaret pretty much ignored Teresa, but she did give Jen Aiden a big hug. So now we see Jen Aiden, Teresa, Dolores, and Danielle off to the side, and they're talking about Margaret. And Jen Aiden says, yeah, I was so surprised when Margaret actually said hi to me and gave me a hug. She was actually nice. So now Teresa jumps in saying, yeah, you know why she did that? Because you're friends with me. So Jen Aiden's like, now, girl, let's not get beside ourselves now, because it's usually the opposite. People are meaner to me because I'm friends with you. Now, one thing about Jersey, the husbands are low-key full-time cast members too, because Jersey is definitely a family franchise. It's always been that way. So now we see all the guys talking, and Joe Gorga's being shady. He's asking Paulie, where's his boy at? So he's obviously talking about Louis. So Paulie's like, who are you talking about? So now John Fuda jumps in and he's like, oh, you sound like an owl asking about who? So now finally they say, we're talking about Louis. So Paulie's like, oh, he had a meeting in Florida. And now you have John Fuda making jokes. He's like, oh, he's on the G5. He's on the private jet. Oh, the billionaire's off having a meeting. Oh, I guess. Paulie brings up how he knows all about the drama between Louis and John Fuda, and how Louis wanted to have coffee with John Fuda to talk about this and try to clear the air just amongst themselves. So Paulie goes on to say, a party isn't the right place to have a conversation. It should have been in private. John Fuda's irritated, but he's like, you know what, Paulie, that's fair. But let me just say this. Why would I give a man who had my family investigated the respect to meet somewhere private? And while I said earlier that I do agree that they should have had a private conversation, I can also see where John Fuda is coming from too. Like, I don't owe you any respect. The way you violated me and my family by investigating us and trying to spew lies, we really don't have anything to talk about, and I don't really owe you that courtesy or that respect, and you should be happy that I don't knock you out the next time I see you. So I do get that. So now you have Paulie saying, look, I'm your friend and I'm his friend, I'm neutral. And I said, when I tell y'all, Dolores and Paulie might be a match made in heaven because they're both Switzerland. So now John Fuda's baiting Paulie, and he says, well, it looks like you've already picked a side and it's his side. So now you have Joe Gorga jumping in, and he's like, oh, would you back him up? So Paulie starts getting upset, and he's like, I wouldn't back anybody up. If they're wrong, they're wrong. Now, mind you, while Paulie and John Fuda are going back and forth, Dolores is standing to the side, and she's watching this all play out. She says she doesn't like how all the guys are pretty much ganging up on Paulie, and she can tell that things are about to go left. So I'm just like, now, Dolores, Paulie is a grown man. If something does go left, let them sort it out like men. You don't need to swoop in like his mama and protect him. Paulie should have enough restraint to control himself and walk away on his own, in my humble opinion. But things do get heated between them, and we see Dolores come over. She's like, you know what? This conversation is over. And so her and Paulie end up leaving the party early. We hear Paulie say on his way out, he should have told John Fuda to go F himself. I was just like, damn, Paulie, you're that mad? And it looks like they actually would have thrown hands, and there would have been a big fight. One thing about Jersey, everybody's going to fight. The wives, the husbands, the kids, the cats, the dogs, everybody. So Teresa and Jen Aiden decide that they want to leave the party early. So they walk over to Rachel Fuda to say their goodbyes. So Teresa gives Rachel Fuda a hug, and she's like, hey girl, we're about to leave. But I do want to say this, but your husband came for my husband, and he tried to ruin his reputation. So Rachel's like, look, Teresa, our husbands need to have a separate conversation with each other. Like, I'm not here for all this. And one thing I've noticed about Teresa is somebody who always has to have the last word, because instead of saying, you know what, girl, you're right, goodbye, she says, my husband Louis is a gentleman. He tried to reach out to your husband to meet up and clear the air. And I just said, Teresa, you already know it's about to result in an argument, so just be quiet and just be on your way back home. So Rachel calls out the fact that Louis isn't here. And Teresa says, because he had a business meeting in Florida, that's why. Then she goes on to add that, why should John and Louis talk at this party anyhow? So now Rachel goes on to say that if Louis had shown up, John would have pulled him outside and they would have had a talk then. So Teresa says, well, that's not how it works. And I'm like, again, Teresa, Louis not here. He's in Florida. Just leave this alone and let the men handle all this. Why are you bringing this up right now? You claim that you're on your way out the door to go back home. So why even get in this fight with Rachel Fuda about this? And was it just me, but was anybody else getting irritated with the amount of times that Teresa kept saying that he was a gentleman? You've said this man is a gentleman at least 10 times in a 2-minute conversation. And like I pointed out earlier, Rachel Fuda is activated this season because she said, really, Teresa, what do you know about gentlemen? So at this point, you already know that Teresa and Rachel are going at it. Rachel's like, look, girl, I don't want to get to know your husband. Like, leave me out of this. And now you have Teresa going for the jugular. And she says, do you know what your husband said to mine? He said that he has so much respect for me because we both went to jail. Because your husband was the biggest drug dealer in Bergen County. And Rachel was livid. She was like, Teresa, pretty much warning her like, girl, this ain't what you want. You might want to stop while you're ahead. Don't bring this up. Now let's stop right here because I saw that John Fuda released a statement defending himself and defending his reputation and character on social media. And I'm not going to hold you guys. I was a bit nosy, so I did do my research about, is any of this true about him being a drug dealer? And I did come across an article discussing his arrest in 2008. One of the allegations Teresa fought about with Rachel at Jennifer's party was that John was a notable cocaine dealer when Brittany met him and was responsible for introducing her to narcotics. John responded to Brittany's claims in July 2023 in an interview with Page 6. The father of 3 said that while he was arrested in 2008 for operating a motor vehicle while in possession of a narcotic, he never served any severe jail time. I was never convicted and charges were dismissed, John said. What I will say is, I think it's interesting that the same woman who was so against people digging into Louis' past via social media and via ex-girlfriends. I think it's funny that she's digging into John Fuda's past when she was the one crying and whining about folks doing the same thing to Louis. It's hypocritical. Now, when Teresa and Jen Aiden walk away, they're getting some candy to put in their goodie bags. And Teresa, how are you that angry that you're dropping the Starburst on the floor? I'm like, your bag is right there. Just put the Starburst in the bag. She dropped like several Starbursts. I was like, oh my gosh, you can't be that upset. Your hands can't be that shaky where you're missing the candy because you just had some words with Rachel Fuda. And I'm so tired of Teresa and these idle threats because she's talking about, I will take that bitch down so quick, it's not even funny. I said, girl, stop. And once again, it's clear that Teresa can't help herself and she has to have the last word because at one point, John Fuda passes by her and Jen Aiden and she's like, hi, double-sided dildo. And I'm just like, really? Because why couldn't you just ignore him? He was minding his business, walking over to his wife. Why would you say that? So now Rachel's joking around and she's like, well, here comes the biggest drug dealer in Bergen County. And John's like, well, that's funny because just a minute ago, she was trying to say hi to me. Danielle's husband had me screaming because as he was walking over to John and Rachel, Teresa's trying to bend his ear about all the mess between her and Rachel and John. And Nate was just like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm out. Baby, he got all the way out the way. He said, I'm not involved. This is not my fight. Leave me out of all this mess. So now Rachel gets out of her chair and she walks over to Teresa and she's like, Teresa, do you want to tell my husband what you were saying? So the way Teresa was calling out to John, she was just like, here, like, come here. Teresa swears that she's on Mob Wives because I said, girl, what's going on? Why are you talking about, yeah, you want to come here? I said, girl, what? So Teresa and John Fuda get into it. John Fuda's like, so who told you all this? So Teresa's like, your ex, it's all over social media. And I said, but wait, the same way you were angry at Margaret for repeating rumors and hearsay from Louis' exes and the blogs and social media, it's all right for you to say, well, it's all over social media and you can talk about somebody else's tea. Teresa, I'm just tired of these double standards. The same way you were screaming and hollering about how it's effed up and how Louis' exes were lying on him and how you can't believe everything on social media. So if that's the case, why are you so quick to believe John Fuda's ex and this blind item on Instagram? If I were John and Rachel, I would not pay her any mind. I would have walked away and paid Teresa dust. So John Fuda's like, so you're going to believe my ex, an inmate in prison? And so Teresa says, we were both in prison, right? That's what you told my husband. And John Fuda wasn't here for it. He said, Teresa, either you're going to let me talk or this conversation is over because I'm not going to talk to somebody who doesn't listen. And I said, well, John, cut your losses and leave right now because Teresa is not somebody who listens. All she does is talk. Now, John Fuda and Teresa are screaming at each other while Jen Fessler is giving her speech, thanking everybody for coming. I said, again, this is a hot ass mess. This woman's trying to enjoy herself at her surprise birthday party, and y'all are carrying on like this. So we end the episode with Teresa and Jen Aiden walking out, and John Fuda calling her a has-been. John Fuda is going to win me over this season. I mean, he went from quiet as a church mouse last season to now he is fully activated and he has reads and shade for days. And the way it's about to be the Fudas against Teresa and Louis, I'm here for it. And Rachel and John Fuda, they're not going to back down. And I saw a clip from a podcast and John Fuda says that he's Teresa's storyline this entire season. So y'all, the way I'm seated, Jersey might actually give us something despite them being so divided and despite the tension being so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Regardless of all of that, I actually think that I might enjoy this season. But either way, I plan on having fun and I plan on not getting so deeply invested because I just can't do it anymore. But y'all, this was a cute premiere episode. I enjoyed myself. And with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.